Do you ever get frustrated with yourself because you feel like you're never satisfied? You know how that is where you get an idea, you get excited about it, you go out, you build it, you achieve it, and then you kind of eventually get bored with it and you want to go on to the next thing. And then you hear that little voice in your head that's like, oh God, how come I'm never satisfied? How come I can't just be happy? Right? You know what I mean? Well, I'm eager to talk with you about this because we had somebody write in about this, and it's not the first time I've heard it. And what they wrote in was they said, I get what I want and I'm never satisfied. What's wrong with me? And I think sometimes we feel like that, don't we? Even though I built two businesses to the $1 million level, both very quickly, each in under 2 years, you get sometimes where you've got that negative voice in your head that says, what's wrong with me? I've had it too. So I totally understand. And it's normal. It's part of the human experience. And that's really what I want to say to the listener who wrote this question or wrote this situation to us is that that's part of the human experience. That's normal. That's called growth. That's called being alive. None of us, I mean, none of us really know what we're doing here, do we? We don't have all the answers. We can't say, like, what is planet Earth? This is human consciousness just walking around here in little meat suits, shaking hands, meeting people, saying, how are you doing today? Like, we really don't know what all of this is about. But one thing I think we can all agree on is that we're always going to have desires. We're always going to have new interests and new things that pique our interest. And I think at the point we don't have them, that's called dead. That's when we're done. And so just because you achieve something you want and you're done with that, and now you're labeling it as not satisfied, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. And so we've kind of got a twofold question here that I would like to address. So the first part of it is it normal to achieve what you want and not feel satisfied? And the answer is yes. Every time we achieve something that we want, we just get a new platform, a new viewing point of what's next on the horizon for us. Think of it like somebody who is hiking up a mountain. You get up to the top of the mountain and you look at the beautiful scenery around you, and that gives you a different vantage point for what you want next. You can't possibly know what that vantage point is going to be until you've made that climb, until you get to that point, and then you go, okay, hold on. Now I'm ready for the next thing. Now I've done this thing. It has met my criteria for what I consider success, or kind of what I set out to do. And now I'm ready for the next thing. I think that is completely 100% normal. Abraham Hicks likes to say, when you've accomplished something, it's like the gum that you've chewed all the flavor out of, which is like so perfect, isn't it? I love me some Abraham Hicks. So it makes total sense. When we're crafting something, and when we're building something, and when we're creating something, and when we're building, whether it's a business or a piece of art or something creative or whatever it is that we're building, guess what? That's where the joy is. You maybe have heard that saying, the joy is in the journey, right? And we all go like, yeah, the joy is in the journey. Want to just be like, whatever, show me the money. The joy is not in the journey. I want that thing that I want. The joy is not in the journey. But the reality is, the journey is all we have. Because if you're like me, and I'll bet you are, we get what we want and we don't even appreciate it for more like 2 seconds, do we? We accomplish something, like even a big goal, something really huge, and we celebrate for 5 minutes. If we're lucky, if it's a really big thing, we celebrate for a day, and then we're thinking, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? What can I do next? Because we are creators. This is part of the human experience. Whether you're building a business, whether you're an artist, whether you are a musician, no matter what it is that you're creating. I don't care if you're creating a beautiful lasagna or if you're creating $1 million business. The reality is it's the journey that we're in it for. And so when we get that thing we want, when we get to the quote unquote end of the journey, it's never the end of the journey, because all it does is give us a different vantage point for whatever is next. What is the next thing I want to create? We are creators down to our very bones. And so what is the next thing I want to create? What is the next thing? What is the next thing? Now, that's part one of this question. Part two is this nagging thing in the back of your mind that says, why am I never satisfied? Why am I never satisfied? And so I only want to address it because I kind of want to bust you. We call it busting. You're getting busted, because we all have these negative habits or these negative stories that we tell. And so the negative habit you've got here is that if you have a negative experience, or if you have a less than desirable way of thinking about something, there's this trigger or this go-to that says something must be wrong with me. Something must be wrong with me. It can't just be normal. It can't just be that I, am ready for something more. It must be that there's something really innately wrong with me that has to change. And so as brain trainers, I'd like to encourage you to be on the lookout for when you do this, because it's probably just some little habit that you picked up along the way. And it kind of stems from this idea or this habit of going like, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough, there's something wrong with me, I am almost looking for things to pick apart about myself. I want to, how am I defective? Oh, let me count the ways, I mean, can't we all do that? You ask your brain a question like, how am I defective, or what's wrong with me? And you're not going to get an answer you like. The brain loves questions. And so part of the train your brain process, and the piece that I would encourage you to do, is the first step called being aware. Waking up. Wake up to those stories that we say just because we haven't busted them. So wake up to those things that you say on a trigger that aren't serving you. Wake up to those questions that you're asking yourself that aren't serving you just because it's our habit to do so. After you accomplish step one, the wake up step, Step one, wake up. Step one, get aware. Notice when you're doing that thing called thinking that negative thought, asking that negative question, telling that negative story, jumping to that negative conclusion. Bust yourself. And when you do, don't use it as another excuse to beat up on yourself. Don't go like, oh, I just caught myself thinking a negative question. What's wrong with me? Right? No. When you catch yourself doing something or thinking something negative, or asking yourself a negative question, or jumping to a negative conclusion, celebrate. What? Why would you celebrate being negative? You're not celebrating the being negative. You're celebrating the being aware of being negative. You have just woken up. That's something to celebrate. Most of the world is just walking around, not paying any attention to what they're thinking, just living the zombie life of like, oh, I don't even know what's going on in my head. It just keeps streaming and streaming, and I'm just not even paying any attention to it. Well, if you get aware and you get present and you get mindful and you start waking up to your stories, then you do a little happy dance and you have a little party, because you have just changed your whole life with that one act, with that awareness. After you wake up, you ask yourself, well, is this really the question I want my powerful computer of a brain to answer? Is this really the message or the story or the negative thought that I want my little matchmaker that lives in my head, the reticular activating system, to keep matching up? Our brains are like matchmaking supercomputers that sift through the mucky muck and just match our lives, match our awarenesses, match the opportunities that come onto our radar with whatever we're thinking about. And so step 2 is decide. I just woke up to this negative thing. Now I'm making a decision. Do I want to keep matching that thing? Do I want to answer this question, what's wrong with me? Step 3, if your answer is no, I do not want to think this way, I want to shift it, then step 3 is finding the new way to talk about it. And you know what? With questions, it's so easy because all you have to do is change the question. What's wrong with me becomes what's right with me. Ooh, what's right with me? Now there's a question you want to answer. Think of your brain going to work on that question and going through the list. What's right with this situation? How is this serving me? Why is this a benefit? How is this going to make my life better? Right? If you're having a negative thought or negative thinking, you can just turn it around. And I like to just start with a sentence like, if I catch myself thinking something negative, like, oh, I'm so stupid. And then I catch it, I just like to start with like, okay, that's not true. What's really true is, and then just see what happens. See what comes out. What's really true is I'm doing the best that I can. I'm every day getting better. I'm smarter than I was 10 years ago. We can always find ways to talk about the situation in a better way. Then step 4 is to feel that positive emotion. Feel the positive emotion that it generates. Feel how good it feels to make that list of what's right with you. When you feel that positive emotion, you actually generate the satisfaction you thought you were missing in the first place. So twofold issue here. Part 1 is that it's part of the human experience to create. It's part of the human experience to enjoy the journey, finish the journey, and be done, and be on to the next thing. Furthermore, the other part of the question is, how do we get out of that hair trigger reaction of criticizing ourselves, saying, what's wrong with me? And the answer, awareness. Wake up. Wake up to your stories. Wake up to the things you're thinking. Wake up to the questions you're asking yourself. Wake up to your life. Wake up to your emotional state. Wake up. Because when you start paying more attention, when you start telling that better story, you start getting better results. So there's nothing wrong with you feeling not satisfied after accomplishing something. You've just chewed all the flavor out of that piece of gum and you're ready for the new vista. So start saying those little phrases to yourself. Start saying things like, ooh, Dana's right, which is always the best way to start talking to yourself. Dana's right. I am a creator. I have accomplished this. I do feel like I'm ready for something new. I do like that I'm having success. I like that I can be aware. I like that I can be present in my own life. It feels good to be aware of my stories. I like that I can notice when I'm thinking something negative and shift it to the positive. I do like making that list of what's right with me. It feels so good to be a brain trainer and to be on this positive path. I am ready for the next vista. I like the idea that when I think positively, success comes faster. I like the idea that the joy is in the journey. I see that the joy is in the journey. I can feel it. I know that I love the process of creating. I am a creator. I can feel that. I love being in physical, whatever physical is. I have no idea, but it doesn't matter. I just know this is the place for me to create, and it feels so good. And I love moving forward. And I love thinking positive thoughts. And I notice even just these silly little positive thoughts generate positive emotion. It feels so good to feel good in my body. I love moving forward. I love being a creator. I love doing the next new thing. I love exploring. I love that I have so many varied interests. I love that there are so many new things for me to do and so many new things for me to explore. It's such a joy to be in this amusement park called Planet Earth, and I am so ready for the next thing. Tell that new story, and without a doubt, you've totally got this.